All right, and we're back with more Calamari discussions. So this will be the Calamari Development discussion. Talk about some of the moving pieces and kind of where it's headed and the roadmap. So John, Gregory, you guys want to take it away?
So there are two pieces here. There's Gregory's got a blueprint for adding crush management, which is a high priority feature for next release, and I have a probably less exciting list of things that we need to look at when it comes to packaging and dealing with upstream dependencies where we currently have branches and that kind of thing. So do you want to go first, Gregory?
I think one of or both of you are muted. You seem to have two connections. We're still muted here.
We can't hear you, Gregory. Do you intentionally have two sessions? One of them is guest.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Let me just kill the phone. That's weird. The mic on the phone wasn't working. Anyways, all right, let me try for the third time. Third time's the charm. So in the agenda, there's a blueprint for adding crush management to the Calamari REST API. And as John said, this is fairly urgent work. Firefly has landed for Ceph, and that gives us the ability to do erasure-coded pools and cache tiering. And in order to use those features profitably and sanely, the first step in that is adding crush management. So Calamari doesn't yet do that, and this blueprint is really just a basic. Here's the pieces we're going to touch in the API, and what we think we need to do to add, just kind of a first pass of, get the pieces that comprise a crush map and do basic CRUD to it. So there's 3 points to the recommendation, really, which is the crush map's made up of something nodes and rules. So the node is basically a way that you're drawing the infrastructure that describes how you've created your storage cluster so that you can describe what rack, what data center, et cetera, your OSDs live in. And the crush is an algorithm that helps you kind of partition your failure domains in such a way that you have good durability, or you have certain pools that live on OSDs so that they can accomplish the things that you want with, say, a cache tier or an erasure coded pool, for example, something fast or something slow like cold storage. And so we're just trying to put this into the Calamari API so that we can start making steps toward getting that. So you can see there's a pretty basic list of stuff here for each of the operations you'd do on each of these URLs, where I've kind of laid out where on the REST API they're going to touch. So there's a number of view sets that are named, and that's where I expect the work to happen for this. And so there's that. And then another piece, kind of an enhancement to Calamari, is going to be to resolve OSDs and hosts, OSDs and servers to crush nodes, so that when you ask for those resources in the API, it helps you understand where they live in the crush map. So that's an enhancement there. And then finally, we plan on doing something with the Ceph conf, because as it stands by default, if you don't have a crush location for OSDs, they get a kind of a default. And so when they go out and come back in, they can end up with the default place, and that's not good, because then they don't seem like they're tied to this construct. So that's it in a nutshell. Are there any questions and feedback about that? Let's see, got something in chat.
Just me posting the blueprint.
Yep, cool. All right. So this is the work that we plan to do very soon.
So I think the Ceph.conf manipulation might be one of the hairier parts of that, because people will have their copy that they've deployed with Ceph deploy when we go and edit local ones, maybe they'll get overwritten the next time somebody calls into Ceph deploy, that kind of thing. So I don't know if we're going to want to come up with something. I don't know, like it would actually be really useful to have like a kind of conf.d thing that would let us pop things in there without having them overwritten. But I don't know, that might not be necessary.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Okay. So on the Etherpad, there are quite a few points there, but I think they're all pretty quick, so I'll just whip through them. Some sort of general reminders for anyone who is getting involved with development. This is stuff which is hopefully expressed in the README and has been on the mailing list, but it doesn't hurt to reinforce it. So there are 2 Git repositories. One's called Calamari and one's called Calamari Clients. Calamari is the back end and Calamari Clients is the front end. So if you build and install Calamari, then you don't get a user interface until you've built and installed Calamari Clients as well. The documentation for Calamari is at calamari.readthedocs.org. There is quite a lot of it, and if you have issues with it or you want to add to it, then it's all right there in Git. So just like with the Ceph Thinks documentation, you can send pull requests to update the documentation. There's been a little bit of confusion about the steps involved in setting up a development environment, because the documentation includes a sort of manual way of doing it. There is also a non-manual way of doing it, which is much, much quicker, using Vagrant. So Vagrant is a tool that lets you set up a sort of canned virtual machine with a certain environment in it. And I really want to steer people toward the Vagrant option, unless you have a solid reason for wanting to do it by hand. Similarly,
in fact, this is true for building the packages as well. It's certainly possible to go build the packages by hand, and also to examine what the vagrants do to build both the Calamari and Calamari Clients packages. But please try the vagrants first, and only go to manual if there's no other option.
Yes, that 1,000 times over. So other housekeeping stuff. So we have a little bit of code which uses private interfaces of Salt. So this is something that Python kind of lets you do. It's clearly not encouraged, and it means that at the moment Calamari is pretty sensitive to the exact version of Salt you're using. So we need to clean that up, and that is probably going to mean sending some stuff upstream into Salt to expand the interface to include everything that we need for it. I was just checking on that earlier today, and it looks like they have a new module interface called Net API that lets you add your own API to the Salt master with the interfaces you want. So that's going to need doing. Otherwise, in a few versions of Salt, we're probably going to see stuff start breaking. We currently have a branch of Diamond with the latest changes for the Ceph collector in. There's absolutely no reason for that not to go upstream, other than that we probably want to update some unit tests around that before doing it. Absolutely anybody could pick up that task if anyone's looking for a way to help out. And we currently have a branch of Graphite as well. There are 2 reasons for that Graphite branch. One is that there were bugs in Graphite that we needed to fix for Calamari. Those bug fixes have gone upstream, so that's okay. But there was also a custom... Sorry, I'm having an echo issue, which is bear with me for a Sorry about that. So the other thing with the Graphite branch is that we added a custom format for our user interface. So when you query statistics, it was giving them in a format that we didn't really like. We added a custom one. We sent it upstream, and they didn't like it. Unfortunately, they were basically saying that they have enough formats and they don't want any more. So we probably need to refactor that code to load the data out of Graphite in their native format and then do that conversion inside Calamari. And at that point, we should be good to then use upstream Graphite. Although the Graphite project hasn't done releases in quite a long time, so we'd probably still be using a Git hash of Graphite rather than an official version of Graphite, which is yet another reason to switch to a better time series database. So those things feed into the possibility of doing nicer, cleaner packaging and getting upstream distros involved. So at the point where when we don't have all these dodgy branches of things, then we would look to have a slimmed down Calamari server package, which didn't have this monolithic embedded virtual env with all the Python dependencies packaged separately as part of the upstream distribution. Currently, we sort of take over the salt master on the machine that we install on, and for clean packaging, we'd want to have a cleaner way of doing that. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there's a thing that needs doing there. Currently, we have some post-installation configuration tasks, such as setting up the database and connecting things together, which we do from a tool called Calamari CTL. And distributions will have policies about whether it's appropriate to do that in the script or whether you should be doing it in package scripts. And the UI packaging could use some simplification. Currently, you require a fairly heavyweight JavaScript stack in order to build the user interface. So in order to make packaging easier for especially upstream packages, we might want to look at producing a compiled .tar.gz that they would treat as static files and then put in a package for us. And these are all things that it would be great if anyone who is interested in seeing Calamari packaged for their favorite distribution could get involved with that. That would be fantastic. Okay, that's also all I have for that list.
Let's not forget the other thing that we were talking about the other day, which is there is kind of a vestigial piece to Thulu, which is called the plugin manager. Before Calamari was open sourced, that was a way that we had developed for third parties to add functionality to Calamari. But at the moment, no one's using it, and we think that's probably going to add some confusion. So if no one else is going to object, I think that we should probably just remove it. So that's a pretty low-hanging fruit task too. Gets delete code.
Right, exactly. We now have a superior way of adding code, and it's called the GPL.
Right. Absolutely. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there to allay any confusion for the people participating today. You should know Plugin Manager is not used at the moment, and that's not the right way to integrate with it unless you have a really good reason. And we're probably going to take it out on the short term because we don't have a really good reason.
So
okay, I think we're done.
Well, I was going to say, what kind of work or appetite are you guys having for bringing in some of the other stuff that was in the community? Like I just pasted 2 into the chats here. There was Dashing Ceph and Ceph Dash that were both community-started projects during the window in which Calamari was closed source. So I don't know, like, are we looking at maybe integrating some of the stuff that they've done? I know most of it is probably not as advanced as Calamari, but I think that there were some pieces that they had that we didn't. And I know that both of those projects were interested in getting involved in Calamari development. So I'd be interested to see, like, both how are we planning on rolling that kind of work in, but also in terms of the actual UI, how flexible or pluggable is it?
So I think that's a great question, Patrick. And there's another project that you didn't paste, which we've actually had some traction from someone who's involved in it called Inkscope. And on the mailing list, one of the people who's working on that is expressed interest in something like that. So the answer is it's definitely great now that we've released it as open source. We can work toward making this work for as many people as possible, so we don't duplicate as much effort, building these other dashboards before people had access to that. That being said, UI is something we're a little bit soft on in the near term. We'd love some help and support from the community for UI development, as we're short on resources there. So if anyone wants to step up and contribute to that, we'd love to have you. So insofar as incorporating what they have visually, in the short term, we don't plan to do much of that as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of just making, the GUI stuff pluggable so that, if someone wanted to, normalize their dashboard to utilize what we had, but they wanted the Metro style look. I mean, I can't imagine why someone would want that, but
so
if they
I
wanted to
think
plug
if
in their own.
if you have a way of doing generic pluggable JavaScript rich client user interfaces, you should do a startup and make about $100 million. It is a technical issue that the frameworks in use for building rich client interfaces in general are quite hard to plug into one another. It's sort of a nice idea that one would be able to pick up a widget from here and put it down there, but I think we're going to be seeing probably more traffic in ideas. That if somebody's gone through the process of working out how to expose something in a user interface, then taking those ideas and bringing them into Calamari, I think that's a very fertile kind of avenue. But in terms of us going out and trying to directly take code from other projects, that there are quite some technical obstacles to doing that.
Yeah. Okay. No, I guess that answers the question then. Like, if the best way in to Calamari is definitely just to say, hey, I want to do this, and this is how I did it, and then just try and get it folded in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Were there any other questions from folks floating around out there?
Do we have the Calamari mailing list public? Can we post that as well?
Yeah, it should be up there.
Yeah, it's all on. I mean, the README for github.com/ceph/calamari has links to the mailing list and the tracker and the documentation as well.
Yeah, just posted the mailing list info. It's listed on our mailing list and IRC page. I'd also like to see us aggregate our documentation somewhere too. Having it over on Read the Docs may be all well and good, but it would be good to have it on Ceph.com somewhere too.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a build thing. So,
yeah.
I mean, if that can be made to happen. Read the Docs it's very convenient because it's a third-party hosted site, so it doesn't require us to stand up any additional infrastructure. We also have Travis CI in use for running the sort of linting stuff against pull requests for Calamari. Again, because it's straightforward to use a third-party hosted service for that, and it doesn't require us to stand up any new infrastructure to do it. Right. So, but yeah, I agree. Convergence would be a good thing.
Yeah. Although that said, if there's anybody out there that really gets off on web infrastructure, Ceph.com could use a new coat of paint. We need to figure out all the moving pieces there. I know the Ceph community user committee was going to take a pass at it, but it is several orders of magnitude more complex than I think it needs to be. So I think that probably stymied any help there. But hey, if anybody really wants to jump in there, I welcome the help.
Cool. Thanks so much for getting us on the schedule, Patrick. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Sage, did you have anything else, or did you want to jump through to the OSD stuff early?
I'm joining late. Sorry, I just got back. I don't think so.
Is Sam around?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know. Did you have anything else to add to Calamari, Sage, or would you?
Hard to say. I had to drop off, so I missed the last 45 minutes or so. But
yeah, that's fine.
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Gregory and John, and I think we'll end the video and swap over here early.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.